Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast and Happy New Year. No, I've not turned into the sofa. I just happen to be wearing black for a change. Welcome to this new and slightly more casual approach, which I'll be doing for the rest of 2025. I'll be doing an episode explaining that next week. I think it'll be released. Today's episode is my best of 2024 for Hyrox. Hyrox and training. So if you're an athlete, if you're interested in general, this is a really good resource. I've been through all of last year's episodes and found all the best bits. So although we're in a new year and I know I'm kind of like recycling stuff that we've already published before, I found the process useful of going over this stuff again. So I'm sure you will. And I've got a really busy January up, so give me a break. I will be posting lots of content soon and some new exciting updates about the podcast and what I'm going to be up to. So I hope you enjoy this and I'll see you soon.
It's a tough sport, Hyrox, and it's an hour and a bit in duration, isn't it? There's a big carbohydrate demand in there with the intensity alongside fats, but your training often is ridiculously high intensity as well. So you need to be building up your carbs as we go. For general kind of gym goers, it's about 3 to 4 grams per kilogram in the whole day. But you could work on building that like 5 to 6 to 7 grams per kilogram as a Hyrox athlete. And that is quite a lot of carbohydrates per day. Like your 80 kilos, you'd be looking at 400 grams of carbs to best kind of help you train maximally as you went along. So I'd be like, some people are averse to tracking, and there is some people who shouldn't track, definitely, if you're at risk of an eating disorder or you just hate it. I wouldn't be tracking, but I'd be looking at your diet now and just seeing how many carbs you get in a day, what are the different types of carbs you get in, what protein, what fats, and seeing if we can just kind of tweak them a little bit to help you with your performance. But to go back to your original question, if you did want to cut, I'd probably be getting that. I'd probably look to do that now, and then I can look to kind of maintain and then gradually up my fuelage as I go towards the event. And conveniently, the body goes with you. So if you up your calories slowly, I found that your metabolism goes with you quite nicely. I had a good example. One of my clients, he started at 2,200 calories, and he wanted to go into, he was more just bodybuilding style training, but he just added 50 calories a week. When his body fat measures, i.e. his stomach, went up a little bit, we just plateaued. And then when they didn't go up, we added 50 calories. And he went from 2,200 to about 3,200 calories in about 6 months. And he gained an inch of body fat. And you can lose an inch in a week. It's not that hard to do. So you find your metabolism comes with you. So after you'd got out of your cut, you could start reintroducing calories slowly and probably having more and more and more. And you probably won't gain much body fat because your training volume will be going up, your intensity will be going up, and it should all work nicely that way.
Right.
But it's a hard question. You definitely need to get your fueling right for your training. But if you do need to lose body fat, I would probably advise, like, we've only given it like 5 seconds for just before you asked me the question, I'd probably do it then. I wouldn't want to be trying to lower my calories at the most intense period of training. I feel like I'm happy with that statement. It would be counterintuitive, but it probably could open a big discussion, and that would be something where a registered dietitian might go a bit differently, but that would be my thoughts.
Yeah, it's got me thinking, like, maybe I need to up my game in terms of like I don't calorie count.
Yeah.
People go, obviously, but I don't calorie count. Just because in general, I know how to manage my weight or whatever, but it's the intensities of it's getting that fueling right. Where, so like, let's say, I don't know, like 6 months ago or whatever, when I was training really intensely, I was like mega strict. I realized that I didn't respond well to gluten. So I basically went kind of like paleo, primal, sweet potatoes, fibrous veggies, lots of animal protein. And then some like legumes, like black beans, and I was having loads of them. Have you come across the 4 Hour Body?
No, go on.
It's a book by Do you know the guy that did the 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he did a book called The 4-Hour Body, and it's basically his whole thing is around he calls it the slow carb diet. So it's basically you can eat as much as you want. You have one cheat day. Not that I would always take advantage of them, to be fair. And it was basically you would have a lot of legumes and beans with sort of every meal. And I don't know exactly what's going on there. But do you know what? Like, actually, in terms of like body comp, I responded really well to it. Like, but I would say the only thing was like I was really lean, like not really lean, like not mega lean, but I didn't have much mass, despite So anyway, so then I did Hyrox Pro in March, and I was like, right, I need to feel more. So then I started eating more. I started reintroducing like sourdough bread and stuff. I'd heard that like CrossFitters are big on wheat as a good thing to fuel performance. And I did feel that I performed better, but I got fatter. So a long way of saying maybe I might start looking at some of the things you're recommending. And
yeah,
it's interesting what you were saying about.
No, go on. No, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
It's interesting what you were saying about like ramping up those carbs and like slowly introducing them, because you can like, okay, like what's the effect? And I suppose what you're then doing is allowing your body to get better at utilizing them rather than just smashing in a shitload of sweet potato like 10 days out from the event.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, I think to answer like the first bit you talked about, like, the 4-hour one, I always say to clients, like, whichever diet you choose needs to be one you can stick to. So I won't mention his name. One of my Raiders boys said to me, I'm doing keto. And I was like, why are you doing keto? And he's like, because it's the best way of losing body fat. And I was like, providing you're in a calorie deficit, it doesn't matter. He's like, yeah, but I'm not having carbohydrates, blah, blah. I was like, but you're a rugby player. You need the carbohydrates. Keto isn't better than paleo Mediterranean diet. I was like, the only thing is you're in that calorie deficit, and that has been proven beyond belief now. So keto, if that works for you by restricting your carbohydrates and you're not a big carbohydrate fan, and then do it. But if you can't see yourself doing a diet in 6 months, it's not the one for you, and you're not helping yourself there. So like I just try and help my clients hit numbers to start with, like hit the macros, and then we work on hitting certain rules. Like we want 80% unprocessed, but we acknowledge that some may come from processed because we're people. It's convenient and it's easy, and the evidence isn't there to say if you eat processed you're going to die. So I allow them to have it because I'm a realist, and that's just how people work. If you say you can't have any of that and you can only have this, you set people up to fail. And you probably felt like you lost loads of body fat because that diet you were on, it's kind of good foods, isn't it? It's like, it's whole foods, very, very nutrient dense, not loads of calories. And that probably should be part of most people's diet. There isn't like magic real foods out there. There's foods that work for you and foods that won't. But I always just say, keep it simple and keep energy balance in mind. If you're trying to lose body fat, as long as you end up in that slight deficit, you will be there. I think from kind of a gut perspective, you want a variety of different bacteria, don't you? You want your fibers in there. You want a nice colourful plate of vegetables, that kind of thing for your gut. And that's why I always push the non-processed as best we can. But yeah, I think just keep it as simple as possible there. And then I do like when you said about that you don't track, it might be interesting for you to track just to see the numbers. The numbers say you should have 4 to 6 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram per day. Have a look and see what you're having. You might only be having 100 grams. And then you can gradually start introducing carbs and training the gut and see how that works for you. There is talk, like some people like the word like fat adapted, so they're a bit more fat based, but carbohydrates are that high intensity fuel. It's called respiratory exchange ratio, which is like your level of carbs and oxygen goes above 1. You are predominantly using carbs as a fuel source, and Hyrox is intense. And some of your workouts that Matty's giving you are probably short, fat. Actually, I saw one on your page the other day, like a 5-6 minute. It's short. It's not utilizing fat really. So it's utilizing carbs as a fuel source. I saw you say, I hate you or something like that. I get a lot of those comments. It's funny, isn't it, when you write them? Maybe overprogram that one.
4 minutes 50, you bastard. That's what I said.
Yeah, that was it. I saw that. It made me chuckle because I get them ones all the time. I'm just like, yeah, my bad.
Why is zone 2 so important? Zone 2 it's about building an aerobic base, so a basic level of aerobic fitness. It's kind of become a bit of a buzzword recently, but zone 2 should be enjoyable. It should be, and it can be done as you can run, you can bike, you can row, but it's about keeping your heart rate in that kind of that blue area, zone 2 on your. There's a few different zones. Some might have 7 heart rate zones, but typically, if you've got like a polar watch and a polar heart rate, it'd be 5 zones, 5 being in, up into your max heart rate zone. Yeah, and then zone 2. So just building a base level of fitness. Now, what it's actually doing, it's basically allowing your body to produce more mitochondria. And the mitochondria is basically the energy cell, the energy of the cell itself. So it's building more for you to be able to run further for longer, and just basically improving your aerobic fitness. So everyone, 2 sessions. If you really want to start improving your aerobic fitness, it's not just about starting to run until you're out of breath all the time. It should be able to run for 30, 40, maybe up to an hour, enjoyably, holding a conversation, roughly. So you should be able to speak a sentence or a paragraph without having to gasp for air. Yeah.
But yeah, zone 2, I've really started to improve my own fitness by doing that within the last kind of couple of years, and it's enjoyable.
It's my favorite now. Like, I hated it when we first started doing it, and I sort of played a little bit before you started coaching me, and now I just love it. I think because at first it was kind of like whip band, so I'd be like, I'm going so slow, and I'm like, I think I said to you, it was like granddad running.
Yep.
And it must be broke.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, obviously that pace started to pick up and I could run a little bit faster.
Yep.
And then you're like, and then it just switched for me, and it totally makes sense.
It's where the magic happens.
Yeah. And I find it as well, say, I wake up, I'm terribly recovered or something, and I want to do a workout, but I'm just I'm sleep deprived or whatever. Just doing 20 to 30 minutes zone 2 is because you get that little lift.
Yeah,
but it's not going for because I always used to just do 5Ks all the time when I was younger.
Yeah,
wake up rough, I'll go for a 5K, and then just blast yourself. Then you get the adrenaline, and then afterwards you just crash.
Yeah.
And so I'm big fan.
Like I say, it should be enjoyable. Not many people well, yes, lots of people enjoy running, but those new to running, if I said let's go for a run, the first thought is
yeah,
because it's running, it's effort. It takes a lot of effort. But zone 2 should be about building your base. Think about it as laying the foundations for you to get fitter and stronger. And even strength athletes need some form of aerobic fitness just for heart health, heart and lung health. And just, it doesn't have to be hard. It can just be nice and controlled. Stick a podcast on, listen to music, but just move.
Yeah.
Yeah. So zone 2, definitely important for improving your aerobic fitness.
Yeah. Awesome. And if anyone wants to know about zone training, there's lots of podcasts and things talking about
loads.
Different zones.
Loads. It depends how far down the rabbit hole you want to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. On that, so the zone 3, they talk about zone 3 as being like the dead zone.
Yep.
That because I found as well, if I went out and didn't look at my monitor and I'm doing zone 2, and then I come back, it'd be all in zone 3. And then they talk about this is the grey zone. What's that all about? What's wrong with zone 3, for example?
See, I don't really think there is anything wrong with it.
studies might say this or that. This is the best way to improve anaerobic training, anaerobic thresholds. This is the best way to improve zone 2 training. But I try not to get too bogged down in that, because at the end of the day, you're still training. You're still improving. You're still out doing something that those who are sat on their ass aren't doing.
Yeah.
So I'd never be like, oh, I'm in zone 3. This is not good for me. Or this isn't doing much. It still is. You're still exercising. So I would never get really bogged down in that.
I actually can't do as much of it. Would that be the argument? Like, yeah, because you can't go zone 5 every day.
No, definitely not.
Because you'll burn yourself out.
Yeah.
So it's the zone 2 thing is you can do more at less risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And, zone 3, like I said, zone 5, you aren't staying in there for long. Although on my Hyrox in Manchester, I was in that zone for an hour and 3 minutes.
Wow. Impressive.
Which is mental. I'd had the chest monitor on as well, so it was as accurate as it was going to be. An hour and 3 minutes. That was pretty mental.
Yeah. Now you say it's mental, which that's something I want to go into. So the mentality of that. So something I heard on a podcast, someone talking about zone 5 self-talk. What comes in at that moment? What's the message? What's the voice in your head? And I started noticing.
Stop.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, have you ever noticed? Yeah, is there a narrative there? Like, do you notice? Goggins talks about this and learning more about himself and in those moments. And yeah, I've certainly seen some dark times in those zone 5, or it's usually it's usually kettlebell front squats.
Yeah.
Hell, they take me to a really dark place.
Yeah.
I'm being there on one of the conditioning classes, and all of a sudden, I'm just this little scared boy who's not being picked for football. Or and all that darkness comes in, and but it's fascinating, isn't it? What's going on there? And what's your experience with that?
I guess it's starting to. I'm pretty sure if we then gave you those same kettlebells now and got you to do the same thing, you wouldn't be that scared boy. So it's experience.
Yeah.
Because you'd know it's coming. You would know that feeling is coming, so you can come to terms with that feeling. And this is why a lot of people fall off the exercise bandwagon, because it's effort at the end of the day, and they don't like the feeling of that physical pain, because it is painful. It's not enjoyable, really. But it's the way I think about it is, and it's understanding it from a biological level. So I understand that, right, if I start to up my intensity, my body is going to require some more oxygen. It's also going to require more blood to pump that oxygen to the muscles which are going to be working. So in order for that to happen, I'm going to have to take some more oxygen in. My breathing rate is going to increase. In order to stop me from overheating and overcooking, my body will secrete sweat to help cool the skin, to help cool the body. Understanding those things happen because your body is an amazing piece of engineering. You can come to terms with that, right? This is happening now for a reason. And the more you recognize those signals, that initial raise of core temperature, those first beads of sweat, those first deep breaths coming, you can start to deal with that, but only through experience. And then this is what really irks me, when people start and then they just stop because they don't like that feeling. It's unfortunate, but it's absolutely necessary for your body to adapt and progress and get stronger. And if you are just completely happy in a state of homeostasis, not moving, not doing anything, not breathing heavy, not doing it, if you're happy with that, then fine. But you aren't going to live that long. You're not going to do that well. Mm-hmm. You've got to be able to overcome these feelings, these physical feelings, and push through those barriers in order to grow.
Yeah.
what do you think is a useful sort of like semi summer off, semi deload, kind of chill, but very non-specific Hyrox, but then maybe like, so basically what I've been thinking is, maybe I just run, just get loads in the tank in terms of running, or maybe I get just do rowing, loads of rowing, and then another thing, or what sort of insights have you got around that, and what seems to work for people?
It's a good question. I think it's probably a question that not a lot of people think about, and I was talking with someone about this. I think this is something that Hunter does very well. Like, he's obviously an amazing athlete, and he's been doing this for years, and he's strong and he's fast and all those kinds of things, but I think he structures his year and his season very well, whereas some of the other top athletes don't necessarily. Because he knows he's really trying to peak for June, the World Championships in June. Like, he knows that's his ultimate goal. And I mean, he broke the world record in the start of December, but he said after that race, like he said, I still think of this as like beer drinking season.
Yeah.
And he hadn't really been like doing that much specificity in the sport, or necessarily trying to peak that much for it. Because it's just too early to do that. And when I spoke to him, it was like, I can't remember what he said, like 3-4 months that he gets a bit more specific about it. Because I think you can just almost flatline. You're just trying to peak too often throughout a year, and it just don't work. So I think thinking about a goal, like we're in March now, and thinking about a goal for October, I think is a good way to think about it. But again, like, not to do too much specificity now, because it's too long away. So
it's like I can't help but just be like, I could work on my row, or I could work on my ski, or do I just have the 3 months off? Do I just just go to a few classes, just chill, and then do that 3 months out?
Well, it depends what your goal is, and how fast you are. Like, if Hyrox is everything to you, then this I would say it's worth thinking about what you need to work on most. Obviously, like, if it is, let's say it's your running, because it ain't going to be rowing or skiing. It's gonna, I mean, they're just
the row and the ski are my worst though, which is like,
but what's the reality? Like, you're going to make up 20 seconds on those.
I suppose.
They're just such small parts of the race. Plus, when you improve your running, it ain't like nothing else is going to improve. Like, those will improve as a result. But let's say it is your running or just your aerobic system, then I mean, it would be about, I would say, like, taking out a lot of the intensity probably now.
Just goes on too,
and then like the intensity and the specificity ramps up as you get closer to the event. But in these like earlier months, like, I mean, it might be thinking about another event that you wanted to do that requires less intensity, and that might be like half marathon or a marathon or triathlon type thing that still like motivates you to train, but doesn't necessarily look like Hyrox. Because I think it's worth like going back to that mental side and like being ready to really like go full send on it when it comes to it. If you're just doing lunges and wall balls and sleds and running and threshold work now, you'll just be like done with it, not only physically but like mentally by the time October comes around. So I think like taking a lot of that out, a lot of the pure strength work, and that doesn't mean like pushing sleds. It probably means like squats and deadlifts and whatever excites you. And then doing like aerobic work, but that might be longer zone 2 efforts, taking out some intensity but not all intensity, and then making it look more Hyroxy as you get closer to the event.
I think that's,
does that answer?
I think that makes sense. It's like aerobic system, don't lose too much strength, or keep your strength, or gain a little bit of strength. I think as a loose goal, that probably would work, wouldn't it?
I think you can think about it as like work on strength and work on your aerobic system like separately, And like when you're doing your strength stuff, it doesn't need to look like Hyrox. And then as you get closer, that's when you start to combine them a little bit more and get into the compromise work a little bit more and all that sort of stuff. But you can think about them separately now, you know, aerobic and strength, and weight that towards what you needed most. If you were a very, very experienced runner and you just needed to get stronger, then you put more emphasis on the strength work over the next few months. Or it might be the other way around. I don't know. But
for context, I'm an all right runner. So I'm like, what did I do at Glasgow? Like 4:10, 4:20, 5Ks, 1K, something like that. Which I was pretty happy with. I thought I was going really slow, like, but I guess like your legs just feel heavy on those big weights. And then I was like, oh wow, they were quite consistent. So, but yeah, I'm looking to like take like 5-6 minutes off my time to get to sub 70. But for me, it's lunges, it's wall balls basically. So it's strength is probably my biggest, where I can make up the most. The most different. So when you say keep them separate, when you say look at them separately, just so I'm clear on this, are you meaning like keep them in separate blocks, or you just mean literally just do them on different days?
I mean more different days or separate sessions even. At the moment, like I don't like in these next couple of months, I don't think it's worth you necessarily like running 500 meters and then doing 50-meter lunges and then running 500 meters and like doing that. Like that type of session is the type of thing that you do closer to the event. Whereas right now, let's say it was your lunges that you like really wanted to work on. That might be like doing really heavy lunges on its own, not aerobically compromised or anything like that. I think makes most sense at this stage when you're this far out from the event to like really work on those. And even like I say heavy lunges, but it might be squats, it might be whatever. But doing it so it looks like a Hyrox now, I don't think would be worthwhile.
No, I agree. No, that's useful. Thank you for that. And then
also like you mentioned lunges and wall balls, which are the final two stations. So it's worth considering, is it really lunges and wall balls that you need to work on, or is it the fact that you're just so wrecked by the time that you get to them because you're not used to working out for that period of time? Like because you're 70 minutes into the race by then, is it really lunges and wall balls that you're struggling with, or is it working out for that period of time that you're struggling with? In which case, like building your aerobic system would be worth considering as well.
That's not exactly obvious, is it? Where it could be the aerobic system that is just compromising me that much. So doing something, Do you think a marathon would be too much? Do you think half marathon would be better if I did that?
It depends. I mean, it depends how much running you've done. Like you don't, obviously, if that step up to marathon sort of distance is just going to ruin your legs and risk injury and everything like that, then it could be too much. I mean, half marathon is quite nice in terms of the time domain is going to be very similar-ish to what you might do a Hyrox in, at least, whereas marathon's going like far beyond that.
What do you think about zone 2 training? Are you like a zone 2 advocate? Are you just a bit like meh? People obsess about it a bit. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's got its place, obviously, but I think it's got its place more so at certain points in the season. So, like we're just talking about in those next couple of months, for example, I think it's got a greater place than it does if you're 2 months out from a race. And I think if you're like very close to a race and you're trying to do a large majority of your work zone 2, my gut feel is like that's a mistake now. I think because it has increased in popularity so much and people are talking about it so much, I think it would be an easy mistake to make, to like feel like you need to do a huge amount of zone 2 at all times. And eventually that might pay dividends, but it's like longer term strategy. And I think if you're racing in 1-2 months and you're trying to do a ton of zone 2 work and not much intensity or threshold work, I think you'd regret that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense at the start of the base, doesn't it? I mean, one of the things I was thinking, and you might, whether this is a bit too simplistic, but I was just thinking, see how far I can increase my distance staying in that zone 2 or zone 1. This summer, I'm just like, as long as I'm not starting to like jack the heart rate up, if I can just start to increase those kilometers, then that could potentially, I was thinking that could be, but I suppose what you don't see is what it's doing to your legs. So if you,
well, yeah. I mean, zone 2 in theory, you should be able to do continuously, like as long as the muscular side of things doesn't like compromise you too much, then you should be able to do fairly continuously. I mean, I sometimes do a test to check where I am with my running. It's like, it was run, I haven't done it in a while to be fair, but it was run like 5 kilometers, keeping my heart rate at 140 BPM, which is like zone 2, zone 3-ish for me. And seeing how long that takes, and then like tracking that over time, to tracking
like your
seeing
aerobic
how I'm progressing from that
thing.
Yeah. So I was doing a 5K at 140 BPM, and then a kilometer, like having a little rest after that, and then doing a kilometer. I think it was 155 or 160, and seeing how quickly I could do that kilometer. And I found that was a very good way of just seeing how well I was progressing with my running, and it translated quite well actually, especially the speed of the kilometer to how well I progressed in Hyrox actually, like, because that's like, thresholdy sort of pace, and it's quite good way for me to pace my Hyrox as well. Like if let's say I can run the kilometer at 155 in 4:20, that's probably quite good pacing for me in a Hyrox.
So I've got this little thing that I've done with other trainers.
Okay.
And I called it Desert Island Slip Discs. I don't suppose you've ever heard of something called Desert Island Discs.
Never. No, what's that?
So Desert Island Discs is a thing on, it's been going for years on Radio 4. And they would interview people, and they go through 10, they've got imagine they're on a desert island, and they've got to save 10 discs from the waves. So it's through like a music lens, like which tracks would you save? However, mine's slightly different. So it's if you're on a desert island, which 5 exercises would you keep in order to give you the most functional strength and guarding against something like a back injury?
A back injury?
Well, it's only because I call it slip discs, but yeah, it's literally just functional strength.
Like any 5 exercises, don't have to.
5 exercises for core strength, just to, like, if you're going to live the longest on that desert island, there's no chicks there, so you're not doing bicep curls with a fucking palm tree log. Yeah.
Right, okay. So, I mean, I can use weights though, if say there's weights there, yeah? Or just body weight?
Yeah, no, I'll give you weights. I tell you what, I'll give you a couple of kettlebells.
Perfect. Right, so, or you could find like a big log that looks like a kettlebell.
Yeah.
So, these aren't in order. Definitely loaded carries, 100%.
Loaded what, sorry?
Loaded carries, farms carries, Zerchi carries, front rack carries with the kettlebells.
Yeah.
100%. So good for your core. The entire, like, the time under tension really does help build like a lot of back strength in your back, your grip strength, everything. I program carries all the time, and I probably do them at the end of every workout if I've got the time and space to do them. So yeah, number 1, loaded carries.
Number 2 would be probably I'd do a squat variation. So yeah, I'd be doing goblet squats.
So goblet squat.
Goblet squats. Yeah.
And I suppose, see that like that front position, that rack, or like holding it in front of you. There's something about it. It's almost like it's like compromise because it's like feels like someone's hugging onto your lungs.
Yeah. Again, it's all your rib cage is all rolled in, and I use a lot of front stuff because I do not have the shoulder mobility to do any back squats or out. So a lot of my squatting is front. Well, all of it's front loaded really, unless you use a safety bar. So yeah, goblet squats definitely. Then I would probably say I'd have if I was on a desert island, then in case something fell on me, I'd do kettlebell floor presses.
Kettlebell
Press.
floor press.
Yeah. And then
So would that be a bit like a bottoms up?
no, just literally rack press.
But yeah,
Floors in. Probably a glute bridge floor press I'd do with them. And then just because these are my favourite exercise, bar none, I do a gorilla row with kettlebells or one per wood, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
So alternating kettlebell row from a hinge position. And then top ones, this is definitely number 1, the kettlebell swing. Without a doubt, number 1. I do kettlebell swings for the rest of my life, 100%. Yeah, I'd be quite happy just with swings, to be honest, but I like swings just because you can train them with max intent, max power. You can slow them down, you can really... It's a full body movement, really, I think. It's great for your core, back, legs. Yeah, so it's kettlebell number 1. I think that's everything, isn't it? That's fine.
Yeah. So we've got loaded carries, we've got goblet squat, we've got glute bridge, kettlebell floor press, gorilla row, kettlebell swing.
Yeah. You could make a little complex up with them as well. So if someone has, but I could see if that many exercises, think how many different workouts I could create with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good choice.
And on your carries, do you just like go slow with them, or do you like mix it up? Like some weeks do, run a bit faster with them, some weeks like go slow. I suppose that's the beauty, you can do.
Yeah. It depends on what session I'm training. So if I'm doing like an upper body strength hypertrophy session, I'll go as slow as possible, really tight posture. But if I'm doing like an AMRAP or Hyrox session, I'll run as fast as I can with them. I do like the idea of running my weight though. I think I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good skill that we probably don't do enough of. That probably people before us ran with a lot more weight than that for days on end. So I do.
Hey, I'm pretty good at the farmers carries,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I come 11th at Manchester overall in the farmers carries.
What did that 24s or 32s? Did you do pro? Or?
That was 24s. I did pro at Glasgow, but yeah, I'd been training pro, which helped.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, trust me to be the best at the one thing, which is like you get the least benefit from. You're like, it's not that long anyways, but yeah, fuck it, I'll take that.
Sprint with it, aren't you? Yeah,
I'll take that.
Again, I feel like any carry is just like, it's great for you, especially like grip strength and that as well, that people don't really think about.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like
a metric as well, innit, when you're holding it.
Yeah.
You're not. But yeah, and then I like when you're slowing them down as well. I feel like when I started doing them, I did put a lot, when I was trying to build a little bit of muscle, they definitely helped in that side of things. You're really just slowing everything down. And posture. I feel like they're great. But yeah, I'm doing Hyrox when am I doing it? October in Madrid. So
Oh, nice.
I'm hoping that the amount of kettlebell carries that I've done over the years will help me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, that's awesome. Are you doing solo or?
No, we're doing doubles. Just for the first, we're just going. There's like 4 of us going, and then
Yeah.
my missus and her sister are going. They're doing their doubles as well. So just to sort of ease into it. But I've been enjoying training for the double. It's been good, really good fun at it. I've done a few simulators and
Yeah.
like run throughs of the full thing, and I've proper enjoyed it. I do. I think I know why everyone buzzes off Hyrox. Like I feel like the format's good.
Yeah, it's cool, mate. What here's a question for you. It's just coming in my head. So when you're doing sled push,
Yeah.
have you noticed there's a bit of a trend to like the way you push it? So rather than like
Pushing it like that, having your arms down, wrapped around the bar.
exactly, yeah. So it's obviously less load, less on your shoulders, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I know that's because I've tested it. It's definitely a more efficient way to push the sled. But from a functional fitness perspective, do you think you're losing something by pushing it that way rather than in a more traditional sort of holding onto it at the top and using your shoulders as well?
In terms of like an everyday sense, yes, because if something, I'm just thinking, if something falls on top of me, if I've got to move something, I'm going to use my hands out.
Yeah.
Not everything you can grip and use your forearm as like a lever.
Yeah.
So 100%, I feel like as a functional side, definitely it's more beneficial to really drive with your arms because that's how you would push anything normally, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a bit of a hack, isn't it? So I was thinking, because I'm like off season at the moment, I might start switching it up with different sled pushes, just sort of changing the way I'm holding it.
It can't harm, can it? Yeah.
No, yeah, just to, getting those little tweaks and making sure, because I've been so specific on Hyrox for such a long time, I'm trying to like round myself out again.
Yeah, it's good because you're doing it. What you're doing it, you try to move that sled as quickly as possible. You're not trying in that. You're doing it just to move it as quickly as possible for that race. Whereas when you strip it, Hyrox is back, and you strip all the exercises down to what they actually made for when being bundled in the race, then you start thinking what that exercise is designed to target and improve.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that is more of a functional grip in terms of what you would be able to use it for. Like if I'm pushing a car, I'm not going to push a car like that, am I? I'm going to push it like that. So yeah, I totally get your point on that. I'm with you on that one.
Do you know, just after I'd started training Hyrox, I think I was, fair bit into my plans. I was getting pretty good at the sled push and stuff, and I had a situation where a car broke down and I had to push it, and it was like, fucking yes, my time has arrived. I was like, it was mad. It was like, oh yeah, it's the sled push. And it was buzzing. Yeah. So yeah, that would lapse quite nicely onto real life.
Yeah, definitely. It is good because I feel like that's where functional fitness, if that's the term everyone wants to use at the minute, and what's functional and what's not, is I know sometimes like machines do get a bit of a bashing that they're not functional because they could be functional in other ways, whether you try to build, do you know what I mean, you try to build more muscle, so you're a lot more resistant to injury and all this sort of stuff. But training all the time, sat down in a chair, do you understand what I mean, with pad to push off?
Yeah.
There's a lot more times in life that you're going to be on your feet. You need to be strong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
That's why more people go in it, because you can see it. It relates more to like everyday life outside the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, like you say, machines get a bit of a bashing, don't they? But it just seems to make sense to be doing free weights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
Whether that's the best thing if you're doing bodybuilding, then that's a different conversation. But
yeah, when you're targeting, it just depends all on the outcome of what you're trying to achieve, doesn't it?
Yeah, I had like this realization. I think it was last night actually, and I was because I've been in off season, I've been a bit of a funk with myself because I'm like, oh, I've lost loads of muscle. I'm rubbish. I'm so weak. Blah 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 blah. All this like inner voice, and then I just thought I've had this like realization where I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. To be a good athlete, and like you wanting to train all those little tweaks, like all those little core elements and to be able to hit all them areas, like you're probably not going to see that much hypertrophy, are you? Because
No.
there's no way you can hit them that many times.
No.
So,
and obviously, your Hyrox isn't set up. Your program's not set up for that, is it?
no.
In the off season, you're probably not thinking. Do you know what I mean? And it's something I avoided for years, like the sort of hypertrophy, what people call bodybuilding exercises, which essentially they are because you try to build muscle. I avoided them for years, thinking, oh, it's not applicable to what I'm doing. But like you just said, it makes you a better, well-rounded athlete or resistant to injury. And I think it definitely has its place in most programs, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think you can be sensible with like I've been thinking. So I'm basically trying at the moment to do like a pure strength period and like totally get rid of my ego, like just focus on like getting heavy 3 to 5 reps, all that sort of thing, and then I can have a little hypertrophy phase, maybe an 8-week one or something, but like just mixing it up and also not forgetting to do all like the core stuff and the functional.
Yeah.
Like last night.
I like doing sometimes. Why don't you pair it together though? Put a little pump session on at the end of your strength workouts. 15, 20 minutes.
What you mean, just like a low rest, like finisher?
Yeah, just target 2 exercise or an exercise per muscle group and just go to failure on them. Minimal rest, 30 seconds rest if that between sets, high reps, 12, 15, and just blast it.
And what 3 to 4 sets?
I'd say 3 to 4 sets. Yeah, 3 sets of 12, you're probably looking to be all right if you're doing 1 set, or maybe go to 4 if you've got time. Don't want to put too much time on your end of your strength work, but definitely think it'd be beneficial, or designate one day as like a pump day, if you will, or hypertrophy day, as like at the end of like on a Friday, like an accessory day if you've got a big run on a Saturday. That's how we do peak at the minute. We have an accessory day on a Friday, and it's just good to get that. Do you know what I mean? Some people love it, but well, I do now. I've started doing it more. I really enjoy it. It's a bit of a break from all the other stuff.
I think there would be 4 major frameworks that I could suggest for athletes to get hold of their performance from the mental side. Number 1 would be visualization. It's one of the most powerful techniques in sports psychology. It's very famous. It's also known as mental imagery. It's not the one where you do just as you're performing or just before you perform, where you just think of how you want your skill to go. It's something that requires a little more practice and dedication and time. So something that you do off the field regularly for a consistent amount of time, where you see your performance the way you want to do it. You visualize all the skills, the muscle movements, you feel everything. You see yourself scoring the goal, hitting the ball at the bat, swinging the racket, the sweat coming down your skin. You make it very real and you see yourself winning. So it's about skill development. It's about motivation, positivity. It's all these things. And what this really does is it activates the motor neurons in our brain, the motor neurons, and also a type of cell called the mirror neurons. And the fascinating thing about our brain that researchers have found is that when you actually perform something, a skill, and you just think of performing that skill, like you just rehearse it mentally, the same pattern of neurons fire in your brain. So your brain can't tell the difference if you're actually performing it or if you're just visualizing it. That's why the more times you visualize, your brain feels like you're actually practicing it more and more, and you get better at it. So that's the power of visualization that a lot of elite athletes use. Now, I would strongly suggest people to learn about it and use it, not just for elite sport or competitive sport, even for any kind of skill you want to master, right? Like even for Hyrox, for example, like see yourself going through that entire set from, 1 kilometer to the next, and every movement and it just kind of becomes natural when you actually perform because you've just seen it so many times.
Would you like to know one of my visualization tactics? So I started doing it, and this is quite good actually. If someone's if they don't have a meditation practice, maybe. Do you guys sauna? Do you do sauna out in India? Yeah. So I started doing it in the sauna because it's kind of like time for like meditation, and sometimes you sat there. Obviously, there's not much to do. And I found the sauna was really good because, of course, it's painful as well. So at the end of Hyrox, you have to do 100 wall balls, and it's like it's a real mental game. And I was like, I would do my whole race, sat there in the sauna, and then at the end, I'm picturing myself doing the wall balls. But as the heat's rising as well, it feels painful. So it's kind of, I do think that really helped. I know you said 2 things, by the way, so you've got 2 more to go, but I couldn't help just interject. What's going on with those mirror neurons as well? Like, just tell me a little bit more. What is a mirror neuron?
So a mirror neuron is basically any kind of neuron that fires in response to an activity that you see or visualize that is outside you. So if we go a little bit into the history, the way they were discovered is like these bunch of scientists were kind of working with macaw monkeys, and they actually just went out to get some lunch. And they were just testing the different motor neurons. So they knew that if a neuron is connected to the motor system, it should activate when the motor system is active. So if the monkey moves their hand and reaches for something, that neuron's going to fire, right? So they were just taking a break during their experiments. They went out quickly, got some lunch and sat back down, and they started eating, but they did it in front of the monkey. So when they did that, they saw that as the monkey was observing them, the same motor neurons started firing, even without the monkey moving their muscles at all. And it happened every time the researchers picked up the food or made a motion of eating it. And that kind of was like a great insight for them. And they did a lot of experiments with that. And they saw that anytime you see an action or you recognize a certain action, the same neurons that you would use to perform that action fire. And that's how the concept of visualization came in. So it's also connected to empathy. When the better you're able to empathize, right, you can see that perspective, you're able to fire that same reaction or system inside you, and you can empathize better. So when you visualize, you see it, you're activating those motor neurons without actually moving your body. And it's just called a mirror neuron because it's mirroring a certain behavior. So it's not a different type of cell. It's just the same cell that already exists. It just fires in response to visualized activity mentally or activity that is seen externally, as if you were doing it yourself.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's like if sometimes like if I've maybe done like if I've filmed myself, which I do quite often, I film myself doing like a heavy 1 RM squat or something, and then I'll be sat on the sofa in the evening and I'm on my Instagram and I'll watch it back, and then I'll start like my nervous system will start ramping up. It's like, this like empathy response to me doing the thing, because I knew like it's like
Yeah. No,
so interesting. So you said there was 4 and we covered 2. So
one was visualization. The second one I would say definitely is meditation. This is applicable to all kinds of performances or activities in life, and it really helps elite athletes. The more you're able to steady your mind through meditation and take control of your thoughts, the better you're able to stay focused in your performance, keep away distractions, and it also helps you stop overthinking about the result and what's going to happen at the end. Am I going to make the shot? Am I not? Am I going to win or not? So it helps you stay present and just focus on that ball or that moment. So meditation helps for sure. That's the
And
second
would
one.
that be like focused attention, vipassana, traditional mindfulness, meditation?
Yes.
Like, because, yeah, focusing on your breath is the same as focusing on the skill, right? Rather than the outside.
Correct. So when you practice focusing on your breath, you develop that internal ability to sustain your attention at will. And so when you're out there with the ball, you're exercising your ability to sustain your attention on a particular target, which is the ball.
What would you say to like someone, because this is a common one I get, well, no, the sport is my meditation, or running is my meditation. I don't need to do meditation because I already do that. What would you say to that?
I would say it's really great if you feel that way. And what they're trying to say is that's something that makes them feel good. It makes them feel calm, grounded, happy. And that's great. If you have something that makes you feel that way, it's really good. But the point of meditation as an exercise of its own is an exercise of concentration and sustained attention. And while you're playing that sport, and that gives you a lot of benefits of meditation, such as pleasure, being in the moment, enjoying your activity, it doesn't necessarily help you practice concentration, because in that environment, if you introduce triggers, pressure, stress, someone saying, okay, you're going to play this, but there's a lot of these distracting thoughts coming in, or the opponent is changing their strategy. And you're like, wait, I love my sport, but I don't know how to handle all these triggers and these distractions and this external pressure that is suddenly built. So for that, you need meditation, sustained attention to keep away your distracting thoughts and other things, to help you in your practice of your sport, to enjoy it better, to perform better, and to help you in your meditation, if that's your meditation. Yeah. So you can call it anything, but practice of sustained attention and concentration will help you excel in any performance you want.
Yeah. Do you know, it reminds me a few years ago, I became like more aware of I would say like my hormone balance, like paying attention to like how I'm feeling, like do I feel like I've got testosterone? I started noticing stuff like this, and I went down this journey of kind of like trying to optimize for that kind of stuff. And prior to this, I was very kind of yoga, meditation, gratitude. I was very calm, and all the rest of it. But like what I was lacking was like that fire. And then so I went through like a period of trying to like, how can I ignite the fire, but like not go into this like stress mode. And for quite a while, actually, I started to worry that meditation was reducing my edge, or if I meditate, I must be dumbing down my testosterone levels. I don't believe that now, by the way. But what would you say to that kind of fear? Like, well, if I meditate, I don't want to lose my edge.
Okay, I haven't heard that a lot, but there are cases where people become too calm for their own good, and I think that ties more into a concept of the optimal level of arousal. Before every performance, there's an optimal state that you should be in, a physiological state, which is called your state of arousal. And if it's too high, you're going to be overcharged, over-energized, too anxious, just, all over the place. If it's too low, you could be quite dull. Your mind can go blank. You're not really present in the moment. You're like, wait, what? The game started. And you can kind of freeze. And you need an optimal level of arousal, of psychological and physiological activation to be present. So what could happen in that case? A certain kind of meditative practice, which helps you become calm, but doesn't necessarily help you become conscious and aware, can lead you to that low level of arousal state, where your physiological activation has gone down, but psychologically you're not still very alert or ready to take action when required. So it depends on the type of meditative practice you're doing and how it's shifting your physiological state.
Mm.
I can
Yeah,
talk a little bit about. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. No, it totally makes sense. It's all. I suppose it's that self-awareness, isn't it? And to become more self-aware, you probably need to do more meditation. But like noticing the patterns in your own body, knowing what you need at the time, and see at the moment, after I meditate in the morning, I have like a few reflections that I run through. I've actually got it on like it's like a split timer on my phone for working out, but I use it for just mental prompts for. So one of them is so for a long time I would use like a negative visualization. I'm going to bring this home, by the way. It'll come back to what we were saying. So the cue would be, think about how you will feel if you stop publishing podcast episodes. And I sit in that pain of like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So then I'm like, right, get upstairs, start editing, messaging guests, whatever. But then recently, I noticed it wasn't doing it for me anymore. So I switched it. So I switched it to the other way around, which was, imagine how you're going to feel once you've done 50 episodes, which is like a positive one. It just made me think about that. It's like, I suppose it's like that activation energy, and like, which direction do you need to go? As you're sitting in that, if you're meditating, then afterwards, like, paying attention to which way you want your sort of nervous system to be pushed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And as you were saying that, I kind of thought of like the prefrontal cortex, which you might have heard of, which is the front part of our brain that is responsible for a lot of logical thinking and higher order thinking. And meditation does enhance that and enhance our ability to have better executive thinking and rational decision making and things like that. And when you have to tie the action to a particular outcome, let's do this because I can visualize a certain outcome, a positive result that I want for myself. But sometimes it becomes difficult to link the action to that outcome. And you'd be like, yeah, but how is this going to link to that? And when you meditate, you build awareness of that, self-awareness of that, or goal awareness, and strengthen the rational patterns which help you link these two activities. So it automatically gets to work and it becomes autonomous. Like you do the activity because it's so clear how this is going to help you reach that goal that you have for yourself. That's how I think I would see it.
Yeah, are you saying like it's almost like a drip feeding a bit of that feeling that you're going to be doing during the activity to get you motivated? I don't know if I've understood that correctly.
Yeah, kind of like meditation, just bringing that clarity in of, why a certain action will or will not help you achieve a certain goal, right? Because sometimes you fail to make the link as to why doing these kind of actions and steps will create a certain result or outcome.
Yeah. I suppose that leads into motivation. Sorry, are we still on 3, by the way? Have we got one more? I keep jumping in.
So we had visualization, we had meditation, and I could see there's one more. I initially said 4, but I could just say both together. So the third one is journaling. And journaling is a very broad term, and it could mean a lot of things. And there are different types, such as journaling just for gratitude, to get into a positive space, or like a post-performance analysis of how my workout was or training was, which builds clarity. But the kind of one I want to focus on is emotional journaling, how you feel about a certain performance in the past, so that you can just recover from that setback quickly by addressing that pain, and how you feel about a certain event that is going to happen in the future. So you can address that anxiety head on before you're faced with that event. And a lot of the athletes I work with, we practice emotional journaling for situations they faced in the past so that they stop avoiding it, can get through that pain and take away all the technical aspects they need to learn from it. And journaling for the future. How do you feel about your upcoming tournament? Because if you don't address it and leave the anxiety unaddressed, because it does exist somewhere, either little or a lot. And if you don't address how you're feeling about something, the time of when you're performing is going to creep up on you. And you wouldn't have processed what tools you have to handle how you feel about it.
Yeah. A colleague of mine had a driving test recently, and she's quite a bit younger than me, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm worried about this, and there's going to be traffic."
Yeah.
And I said to her, "Have you ever done any visualization?" And she's like, "No." And I was like, "Look, like you need to like imagine that traffic. How are you gonna respond to that, right?" And that's what you're talking about in terms of that future planning.
Yes, visualizing for sure will help, but also just writing it down.
Okay,
Writing
yeah.
what my steps are, what my tools are. So that will come under journaling, but both definitely can work hand in hand. You journal it and you also visualize it.
Yeah, so you kind of you're obviously visualizing stroke thinking about what might happen, and then you're like proactively going to journal and say, these are the frameworks, these are the tools that I'm going to use to get through that situation. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would actually classify them as two very different techniques.
Okay.
When you visualize, you just put in your mind what you want to see happening. I want to be performing like this. You fill your mind with certain images of how you want to see a performance to be. If you visualize something negative, you might just attract that or train your brain to think in those patterns. Whereas in journaling, you address what's actually happening. Right? How do I feel about the situation? I feel anxious. I feel embarrassed. I feel horrible. What part of it makes you feel horrible or anxious or fearful? You write it down. You write it down so much that you kind of make peace with it. And then you say, okay, what strategies do I have in place to address it? And then you write down your strategies. And once you have your strategies, you've addressed that emotional burden, you've sort of started making your way towards peace with it. Then you're at a place where you can visualize it positively.
So give me an example of, if you wouldn't mind, just talk me through an example, like could be a made up one, and then a way that someone could get through it, just so I can really nail that.
Sure. So let's say an athlete has a swimming competition coming up, and they've had like 3 competitions in the past year where they've performed really poorly, and they're super anxious about this upcoming performance. Now, yes, they can visualize it, but if they're in a negative mindset, it's going to be very difficult for them to visualize it. And even if they do, their brain might not trust them. They might not have developed that trust within themselves to believe what they're visualizing. Like, okay, I see it, but I still think I'm going to fail. I'm not sure if it's going to work. So they're not strong enough yet to believe their visualization. So at that point of time, we do journaling. We do like cognitive exercise. So let's start by addressing the fear, talking about it. How do you feel about your upcoming competition? And if you have nothing to say, you might be practicing emotional avoidance, not thinking about it, which is not healthy. You want to be very honest with what you're feeling about it. If you're scared, you are. And that's only going to help you. Addressing it is only going to help you. So I'm pretty anxious about my tournament. Why? I don't know. It's not going to go well. What do you actually feel? I said, I'm not sure if I'll perform well. Why do you think you may not perform well? Because I don't think I have the skills. Why do you think you don't have the skills? So you start writing these things down, you question yourself, and you say that I haven't practiced enough. Well, what's some data that you haven't practiced enough? And then when you start rationalizing it, you really don't have that data and information to support the fact that you might not perform well. So you start looking for things. Oh, I didn't perform well the previous time. Why didn't you perform well? For XYZ reason. Well, have you learned from that? Do you have the skills now? Yeah, I kind of do. Okay, so what are some reasons that you might perform well in your swimming competition? Well, I've worked on those skills. I've been training for so long. in the practice races, I kind of beat so-and-so, I had this timing. So you build your data, your fact sheet. You start building that trust in yourself with the facts. You get to a positive space. You've addressed that fear. Now you're ready to believe yourself. And then you go on to, okay, do you want to practice visualization? And you can see it better. And it comes more naturally, seeing yourself winning the race. So that was the journaling part. That's where the counseling, the CBT, all that stuff comes in.
Yeah, I was just thinking then, I wasn't sure if it was CBT or psychotherapy or a blend, but it sort of reminds me of that. It's like going back and redressing what is fact, what is imagined, like what evidence do you have to support the feeling that you have.
Right.
And in some places you might have some evidence, but let's work on that, right?
For sure.
But like throw out everything where you don't have the evidence for.
And when the athletes start to see the facts for themselves, all those biases clear out. They start to feel positive. And then in that state, their visualization is much more powerful.
Yeah.
Versus I'm not confident if their visualization will work if they have so many negative beliefs that they haven't addressed. And I say negative beliefs because they're not based on facts.
Yeah. No, that's cool. All right, I've got a selfish question. As someone who is generally pretty calm, I meditate daily, I do all the, the ice baths and cold showers and all this stuff. I still struggle in and around an event. I think like my addictive personality, I think all athletes are a little bit like that, or inverted commas athletes, amateur athletes, whatever. If we're into sports in the gym, I think we like that dopamine, don't we? And those things come along for the ride. And let's say, I'll give you an example. So I had a competition, Hyrox Manchester. It's on a Saturday afternoon. I decided to get a hotel, drive down there the day before so I could relax. And when I'm like in and around the competition and afterwards, actually, everything goes out the window. Like, I know now that I should just meditate more. But when I'm like, once I get in the hotel room and kind of like, my nervous system knows, like, this is new. We've not been here before. Something's happening. And even like the discipline to just sit down and meditate, I just can't do it. What are things we can do to be able to slow us down when we're in an unfamiliar environment, hotel room, different place, city, to get into the right zone?
Right. So I'll talk about the strategies that one can adopt going up to the event. So first of all, meditation should be regular and not something that needs to specifically be done on the day or before the event because it's going to be super hard. So if it's a regular part of your routine as a habit, it's going to be more beneficial. The second thing is visualizing. If you know in advance where your tournament is going to be, what the circumstances are, research about the place, the temperature, the climate, the living conditions, so you can add that in your visualization. So there are three types of visualization: preparatory, action specific, and outcome based. So we all know the action specific one, where you're visualizing the movements. We know the outcome based ones, where you're seeing yourself lifting the trophy and celebrating with your friends. But there's another one which is called preparatory based, where you visualize yourself going to the tournament, leaving your hotel, staying in your hotel, going to the arena, packing your bag, carrying your water bottle, listening to the pep talk from your coach, just getting ready. Anything from the preparation phase, from the previous night to the morning of, to just like taking a shower, or whatever your routine is, and then stepping in and hearing the crowd. So this can help deal with that performance anxiety if you visualize it in advance. The third thing would be is address your anxieties beforehand through CBT, through journaling. Learn these techniques. It's easier said than done. And work your way through it. constantly be in touch with your emotional experience. And the fourth, I would say, is have a strong pre-performance routine. That's the fourth technique that I wanted to address earlier as well, which is a mental warm-up. We all have a physical warm-up that we do before our performance, a few stretches, a few runs, but not everybody has a mental warm-up, something to help them get into the right mental zone. And that's where pre-performance routine can really help. It could be a short visualization, a particular revision of your math strategy, listening to music, some deep breathing, reading out your list of strengths to yourself. It's a combination of different behaviors and thoughts that you have that you know work for you to help you get into the right zone. Every athlete has a different routine, and we work with athletes to help them find the best one for themselves. So having that pre-performance routine, no matter which environment you're in, your brain and body knows it's time for me to perform now, and helps you get ready faster. So meditation regularly, visualizing the preparatory stuff, journaling your emotions and thoughts in advance, and having a pre-performance routine. These 4 things will help.
Trauma and addiction and whatnot, and then people ending up as elite athletes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just such a good coping mechanism to get into sport. And I think as long as you're aware of like that it is kind of like another addiction, but thankfully it's a good addiction to an extent. As long as you've got that awareness, then you're not blindsided. You know, when all of a sudden, if something was to like, you know, if you were to get injured or anything, that that doesn't just knock you off your feet, and you'd be like, oh, I've got no self-worth and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic. I wondered actually how, because Hyrox is a very interesting sport, certainly for you to have like turned up in, because I was thinking about the body comp thing. How do you, like, given like your history, how do you, because like Hyrox there's a lot of vanity, there's a lot of shirts off and all the rest of it. What are your thoughts on like the body image in Hyrox specifically?
As in for performance, or just the general sort of?
All of it together. Like, you know, what, like, how do you feel? Like an event? Are you the sort of person that will compare yourself? Do you feel like it's healthy because you've got it's more of a muscle mass thing rather than a, you know, starving yourself on a bike type thing?
If it was a shirt on sport, I wouldn't complain. The only real reason I take my shirt off is because, like we mentioned earlier, I get really hot really quickly, and it's just one less thing that's going to keep me warm. So like, since I've done the sport, I've never really cared about how I look, because at the end of the day, you can look like an absolute brick shit house, like 6'5", massive, huge guns, but then can you run fast? Can you finish it? Like, can you finish it quick? Like, that's the only metric, thankfully, is what time do you start and what time do you finish, and how long is that? That's the only metric that matters. Like, it doesn't really matter if you're, like, I've got like a mate, Trav, like 5.5 foot. Doesn't matter if you're that. Doesn't matter if you're 6.5 foot. Doesn't matter if you're massive, skinny, whatever. Just all that matters is what time you finish, if you're being competitive. So I think the fact that you can take your top off has kind of brought in the whole sort of big, like, gymfluencer type folk into the sport, just because it's like you can show your muscles. But I don't really pay too much attention to it. Like, if there's a massive guy, I'll be like, fair play, mate, you've worked hard, but then that's it. Like, and in terms of the actual fueling and whatnot and how your body works with it, I think it's one of the best sports in the world, just because you need to have some level of muscle mass, but then you also need to be cardiovascularly fit. And I can't remember what the study was, but there's a study where, like, if you weight train, it adds like 3 or 4 years onto your life, and then if you do cardiovascular exercise, it adds like 6 or 7. And the fact that you're getting 2 massive stimuli from that one sport is brilliant. And it's a very accessible sport. Like, yeah, you might not have a rowing machine at your gym or a ski erg or whatever, but if you've got some trainers, you can do burpees, you can do lunges, like, you can do whatever. And I think that's probably the best thing about it, just the accessibility and the fact that at the moment there is no defined body type. Like, there is no perfect physique. Like, if you look at the men's field, you've got Michael Sandbach, who's like 91, 92 kilos, 6'3", just an absolute unit. And then James Kelly, who's 5'10", I think. Like, and they're pretty level. Dylan Scott, who's a bit slimmer. But then you just get... And then Hunter McIntyre, when he's racing heavy, like, he's just massive. There is no defined body type. And then it's very similar in the women's field. Like, you've got shorter athletes, taller athletes, slimmer athletes, bigger athletes, but at the end of the day, it's fair game, really.
Yeah, do you know? I was thinking. I was out and having a little walk last night, and it just popped into my head, and it was kind of simple or obvious, but I was like, it's kind of like mixed martial arts for gym and endurance, because you've got all this combination of things. And I think that's why it's taken off. But obviously it's more accessible than MMA. What are your thoughts on PEDs in Hyrox?
That's a good question. That's a very, very good question. And do you know Mark Lewis?
YouTube guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've seen him at a couple of Hyrox. I was actually on one of his videos once. My first Hyrox, pushing a sled like fucking knackered.
I'm just dying next to him.
Yeah.
So he spoke about this in one of his last videos. I don't really keep much track. And he's on TRT now. And he's like, I still want to do Hyroxes, but my times will not be official. And I think that's for like the general public, like, that's completely fine, because I'm not going to point fingers and I'm not going to say names and whatever, but there is definitely people who are taking stuff when they're at an event, and you get that in every sport. Like, people will be doing marathons, they'll be taking like performance enhancing drugs. Athletics, like, just bodybuilders, a lot of people take sports enhancing drugs and won't say anything about it. They just keep it very quiet. Like, I think it's considered like an epidemic in the UK, the amount of people taking steroids in just regular gym spaces. So if you can openly admit, yep, I'm taking drugs, still race, still have your time there, but it won't be I think it shouldn't be counted for anything. But then if you're actively looking to compete in like the Elite 15, for instance, and you're on some sort of drug that's enhancing your performance and you're trying to keep it secret, there's no space for that. And if anyone gets caught, you shouldn't be able to compete again.
Are they testing now? Because I'd heard that they were, but
yeah. So at Nice, it was the top 3 in every like top 3 finishers in every event, and then 2 random people like outside the top 3, I think. But then I also heard somewhere that they tested them beforehand and whatnot. So that's what I know from it. And I think as the sport becomes more professionalized and as more money gets involved, the testing is going to become a bit more prevalent. And I don't think it'll ever get to the point where like the everyday athlete is getting tested. But I think if you're in and around the Elite 15, you should be completely prepared to get tested. Like in cycling, for instance, if you're in the World Tour, you have to declare your location every hour of the day so that WADA can come to your door or come to the restaurant where you're having like dinner with your family and ask you to do a drugs test on the spot. And I think eventually it will get to that point where there's out of competition testing just to make sure that an athlete isn't doing drugs and then weaning off of them into an event. So I think, as unfortunate as it is, like there has to be testing because there's always going to be people that try and find holes in the system and try and get through the net. But it's just part and parcel of sport. It always has been since drugs became prevalent, and it always will be, if I'm honest.
So I want to talk a little bit about like your accident and how you lost your limb. You were in the military, right? Was it Afghanistan?
Yeah, out in Afghanistan in 2010. Yeah, I've been out there, I think about 3 months at the time into my 6-month tour, and I think it was 4 days after my birthday. I can't remember which birthday it was. I think it was my 28th or something like that. And it was 4 days after my birthday. We'd gone out on patrol in the morning and we were going in to put an observation post in. So basically watch over and keep an eye on the surrounding area for any kind of movement and so on, and report back to allow the farmers that were in and around us to get about and do their stuff because they were being intimidated by the Taliban and so on. So couldn't do what they were doing. And if we could push our barriers out a little bit, it allowed them to be able to trust us a little bit more, and we would look after them and so on. So we was putting this observation post in, and on that day I'd been promoted. So I was the whole tour. I was the lead section commander. I was at the front. Well, I had somebody in front of me, but I was the lead section commander who would lead all the patrols and so on. And that day I'd been promoted to the platoon sergeant. So I was then looking after the platoon. So he then stays at the back. The platoon commander goes at the front with the lead section commander and so on, and the platoon sergeant that sits at the back and looks after casualties and ammunition and so on. So I've been put at the back, and then I was just sat at the back going, right, this is boring. You know, as the lead section was doing all the bits and pieces to look at the OP and going up and down this alleyway and so on, I was just sat at the back, providing cover for them and so on. So I got bored and I said, boss, I'm going to come up and have a look at the OP. And he's like, no, you're not. Stay back there. You know, you don't need to come up. Stay there. So, okay, I stayed there, had another coffee and another fag. Asked him again. And this went on for about 30, 40 minutes. And in the end, I just went, right, I don't care what you say, boss. I'm coming up. I'm going into that OP. I want to get eyes on. And it was out of pure boredom. I didn't necessarily need to go up there and get eyes on. It was purely out of boredom at the back. So, yeah, I went down the front. And as I got down there, he says, right, if you're coming over, grab so-and-so as well. So I climbed over this wall into this alleyway. And bearing in mind, these 5-6 lads had already been walking up and down this alleyway for 45 minutes or so. So I popped my head back over this wall and was like, right, you've got to come over as well. And as I did, I took one step backwards with my left foot and just had a bang. And I was on the floor and there was smoke everywhere and there was dust settling and so on. And I was like, oh my God, what's gone on? You know, so I'm sitting there going, right, your responsibility now, get the casualty. Who's the casualty? And I've then gone to sit up to go and help whoever it was, and then realised it was me as the pain then kicked in. I didn't have my leg ripped off or anything like that at the time. It just smashed all the bones in my foot and my ankle. So basically what had happened is I'd stood on an IED, but it had partly detonated. So it had the impact but no explosion. So it was what they've explained to me since was imagine standing on top of a 30-foot building, jumping off and landing on 1 foot, straight legs. The impact that would have through your leg, you got, but you didn't have the explosion, which then basically takes limbs off and causes further damage and so on. So I then looked up, my leg was twisted off, so my feet were like this and 1 foot was twisted off to the side. And it was only... So I then thought, it's ripped my foot off, but it stayed in my trouser leg. So I said to my mate, is my leg still on? Is my leg still on? And he grabbed hold of my foot and twisted it, and I screamed at this point, because obviously it was incredibly painful, and I was like, it's on, kind of thing. And then I was rapidly taken out of there on a helicopter back to Camp Bastion, which is the big camp in Afghanistan where all the British troops work out of. And then I was in the hospital there for, I think, 36 hours maybe. And I was flew back to Birmingham, where I went into the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham, where they were treating all the soldiers that were coming back. And at that stage, I was told to expect the worst. So I thought, I ain't going to play football for a bit. In my head, that was all it was. And it weren't until, I think, that evening that they sat me down and was like, you've got a choice, really. We suggest, we've had a look at your scan, basically, and your ankle is absolutely, like, shattered to pieces. It's going to be quite difficult to fix. And what we recommend is you have it amputated. But the decision is yours, basically. And we're going to leave you with that. But if you do choose to have it amputated, you're booked in for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and was rattling off, basically trying to get me to go, yeah, okay, it's my choice, rather than them going, you really need to have it off. And I says, what would happen if I chose not to have it off? And they were like, you're going to be in pain. Let's be real, you're going to be in pain for a year or two, and you're going to have it amputated in any case. But like I say, you're booked in for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning if you want to have it amputated. So I was just like...
So how did that feel like in that moment?
Oh, horrific. Horrible. Like life ending almost, kind of thing. That's it. It's like I cried the whole night. I didn't sleep. I cried the whole night, and I just said no. Like, no. And I went through every scenario in my head. And the reality is, I knew from that moment it needed to be amputated, and I think that's why I cried the whole night. And then, the following day we went down and went through with the procedure, and I came back up into my bed, and I was then looking down in the bed, and where you would normally see two legs going underneath the blanket, the sheet, whatever, I could only see one and a little bit, and I was just like, what the hell? So yeah, it was mad at that time. Like, really, really quite mad. And then even for like the next 2 or 3 days when I was in hospital, I would have my leg out, and then when somebody came and visited me, I'd cover it up, because I felt, I don't know what, I don't know whether I just felt like people would look at me differently, whatever it might be. And there was just this incredible nurse. I don't know who she is. I don't know her name. I'd love to be able for her to go, that was me. But she basically come and sat with me for about 45 minutes, shut the curtains and just had this discussion, and just went, I've noticed every time somebody comes in and visits you, you cover it up. And I was like, do I? Kind of thing. And she's like, yeah, no, you cover it up. And she was like, do you want to explain why? And I says, I don't really know. I said, I don't really. And she went, they're going to see it eventually. You're going to be leaving here in the next week or so, you know what I mean? And they're going to see it. So, it's getting used to it, you being used to people seeing it, that kind of stuff. And yeah, from that moment on, then the next person that walked in, I pulled the sheet off of the leg, and I was just then like going, right, it's now time for people to obviously see it, and it become a bit more real then. And yeah, that was the start of a little journey, you know. But yeah, it was a few dark moments in that time for sure, where I just purely believed like that life as it was over, and I was never going to be able to do things ever again, and I'm never going to be able to play football, I'm never going to be able to run, I'm never going to be able to do this, I'm never going to be able to do that, and that just went through my head for the next few months before I got to Headley Court to start my rehab.
Thanks for sharing that. What about now? Like, do you still feel self-conscious about it now? Does that still come up?
I love it now. I don't even think I'd change. If somebody offered me this miracle cure and said you have a leg back, I don't think I would. And that purely, I say that because I push myself more and more now because of it than I think I ever would if I had two legs, if that makes sense. I have moments where I go, how quick could I go if I had my two legs? How quick, do you know what I mean? All of these things, how far could I push myself? But the reality is I've pushed myself to this limit because of it. So for me, I don't think I'd change it at all. I have the odd occasion. I've got a tall mirror in a room, and every now and again, if I've got my leg off for whatever reason, and I stand up and I look in the mirror, I go, wow, like, I've only got one leg, because it's so normal now. I don't see it with it off, really. And obviously everybody else might see it with it, like my other half will see it all the time. Because when I'm sitting around at home, I'll take the leg off and I'll just chill and put the leg up. But I don't really see it, because I'm obviously looking outward rather than looking inward towards myself. But every now and again I catch it in the mirror and I see it, and I'm like, wow, like, and it kind of stops me in my tracks a little bit. But yeah, no, I wouldn't change it for the world now. Honestly, I look. It is part of me. It's who I am, and I think, like I say, it's pushed me to be, in my opinion, better than I'd have ever been without it. So,
yeah, that's really beautiful, man. Like, do you know? I was listening to something this morning actually that was talking about a similar thing. How even if we could imagine like a better outcome happening to us, we still would rather it be the way it is. And I was thinking, like, it reminds me a bit of see, I don't drink anymore. Like, I was a bit too wild me. And, you know, sometimes I think to myself, oh, why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just be like everyone else? And that can sort of be somewhat alluring to sort of like sit in that sometimes. But then, you know, and obviously they're two very different things, but like, would I be pushing myself in Hyrox if I was still drinking? Would I be doing the podcast if I was still drinking? Probably not.
Nah.
Like, so there's something in that, isn't there? How the things that you were handed in life that are less than fucking ideal can end up being the thing that drive you to do special things.
Yeah. I've always said, and I continue to say to the young people that I work with, there is a silver lining in absolutely everything, and I truly, truly believe that. Even the most horrific incidents, there's a silver lining in absolutely everything, and if we can find that, for me, that's what drags me through. That's what pushes me on. That's what makes... So whatever comes my way, if they didn't come up with this magical cure and they went, yeah, we're going to sort your leg out and you're going to get this leg back, you know, I'd go with it and I'd deal with it, you know, and I'd create something else coming out of that. But yeah, like I say, like I love the leg now. Like, it is part of me. It's made me who I am. And I think anything that really comes into your life directs that for you, doesn't it? Like, it's something I had no choice about. If somebody had said, yeah, you're going to lose your leg, and you've got a choice, absolutely not. Never gonna take that choice. No one will. But I wouldn't look back on it now Like I say, so anything that really comes your way, for me, and I'm a big believer in this, whatever comes your way is what's always been destined to come your way in any case. It's going to come your way regardless. So actually, it's just working with what you're dealt. And right now, I'm being dealt an amazing card in life. Like I'm in a great place, and I'm not naive enough to know that that's going to continue forever. You know, because it's not. And there's going to be times that are going to be tested. But knowing that there is always a way through everything. For me, having been in these dark places where I didn't want to be alive, and I had enough things around me to take my life, to now experiencing the highs as little as 18 months to 2 years after, you know, that's that you will always come through whatever it is. So that's my biggest thing, and why I do what I do now with the retreats I run for other men with mental health and so on. So, but that keeps me sane at the same time. And this Hyrox program, a lot of it is to keep this in check rather than, you know, me going out. And don't get me wrong, every now and again I wake up, I look at myself in the mirror, and I like what I see now, you know. But that, for me, it's more about what it's doing upstairs than it is for obviously the outlook of the body and so on. But we all do it for different reasons.
There's probably three things: technique, avoidance, and then maybe not training them in the right way, which causes the burpee station to be more difficult than it should be. Outside of injury, of course. Like, for example, your friend in the gym, there's nothing you can do about that, and that's really unfortunate. But imagining that you don't have an injury and you just want to get better at them, there's a really good session that I put together on my program for clients. And basically, it's interval training, but the point being that you try and do, say, 50 meters of burpee broad jumps absolutely as fast as you can, straight from the off.
During
and
training.
Then you get a rest. Yeah, well, this is the session. Yeah. So after you warm up, you would do 50 meters of burpee broad jumps, take a minute, and then do, for example, lunges. Just do something completely different. So do a lunge station, take a minute, maybe do a sled push, take 2 minutes, and then repeat that 3 times. But the whole point is that you're trying to go as fast as you possibly can. So for anyone listening to that, going, oh, you know, where do I even begin with that kind of session? Just pick 3 things that you're not good at. So if it's wall balls, burpees, and sleds, just go 50 wall balls, 50 meters of burpee broad jumps, and 50 meter sled push.
And what was that? 1 minute in between, and then a 2-minute break before the next round? Did you say?
Yeah.
And repeat absolutely. That how many times?
So the reason why this is 3.
3. Do you know that is so simple?
The reason why it's so effective is
pick your 3 workstations and do that. Yeah.
So simple. Yeah, but crucially, and not to be like super scientific about it, do them as fast as you can. And here's the deal, because we all know that we get to the burpee station and mentally it starts to fuck with us a little bit. And you go, oh my God, this is the hardest bit. My heart rate's going to get jacked up. Maybe having a jacked up heart rate doesn't make you feel that good, or it unduly kind of gets to you. You go, shit, my heart rate's really high. This doesn't feel comfortable. I need to slow down. None of that is true. None of that is true. Keep going. And the reason why this session is so good is it trains you to be in an uncomfortable position. So come race day, you don't hate being in that position because you've had months and months and months of training like this.
Yeah. Yeah, conditioning for that, that intensity.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that's... yeah, it's a good one.
Great.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Cool. And then which with the technique element, so I'd absolutely do what you've done, and your gym have absolutely recommended the right method. Like the step-in method, hands down, saves you heart rate, energy, and all that kind of stuff. And actually, you could argue that if you've got enough energy to do your next run after the burpees at a really good rate, whatever that rate is for you, that's more important than trying to shave off 30 seconds in your burpee station. You don't want to do a really fast burpee station and then your next run pay for it. Like that's not a good race strategy for anyone. That being said, what might be a good way to get good at them is to do the slightly more challenging version, which is the 2-footed jump, where you kind of bring both feet in together and then jump. Do that in training and then maybe dial back in a competition, because then it'll feel really easy.
Yeah, do you know, like I've had a few tough weeks of training, to be honest. And as you're talking, I'm going, hold on a minute. Every time I've struggled in training, I'm pretty sure I've been trying these new burpees out. Apart from the first time I did them, but I did them as a finisher. And I think I was buzzing because I quite like the new technique. And then I was like, oh, that's easy. Like, oh yeah, I can fly through them. And then I've gone to put them in with other training things, and then I've just been gassed. So yeah, interesting. I wonder if that's what's taking it out of me. You know, maybe it's a bit too much.
It's not too much. It's just a different stimulus.
Yeah, I suppose it's almost a completely different movement to like the step up, because
So we all work hard in the gym, right? And if you sign up for a Hyrox, chances are you're already in the top 5% of motivated people in the world. Seriously, like it's that hard. And I put anything, like if you do a marathon, you're in that percentage. If you do a tough mudder, that's the long one, you're in that percentage. I don't mean to like knock any other sport, you know.
Sure, yeah.
But like if you sign up for a Hyrox, chances are you're a motivated person. All of that being said, a lot of my coaching and what I'd kind of stress to people right now is, notwithstanding your current hard work, it might be really useful just to check every now and again, like, am I really pushing this? And what a lot of people do is they kind of go like hard all the time, when actually that just leads to kind of going 75% all the time.
For a long time when I was training Hyrox, do you do 16/8 while you're in season, or are you more conscious on getting the calories in?
I think I would. So I've done it in like the lead up. I'll do that because I just feel like, like body composition wise, it just helps me monitor my weight a little bit easier
before a competition.
Yeah. So like maybe in like the 4 weeks leading up to it, and then there'll be certain sessions that I might do fasted, but like the ones where I really need to go and like put an effort in, if it's like a 60 to 70 minute like Hyrox thing, then I would wait until I've had at least like my first meal of the day before I'd go and do that.
Yeah, I think just allowing your body to like just mix it up a little bit, because for a long time, you know, where I would say like probably within our gym, you know, you pick up on the habits of everyone around you, don't you? And so everyone's quite big on, you know, getting the fuel in, you know, making sure you've got plenty of calories. And I did notice an increase in my performance when I did that. But did I feel better? No. I always feel better when I'm doing a bit of fasting. I think it's and you have to sometimes remember, like, why did I get into going to the gym or Hyrox? Was actually longevity, not necessarily about getting the best Hyrox time. So sometimes you sort of like take a step back. You know, if we're doing this for being healthy, then I think it's definitely useful to throw in a little bit of fasting to keep your body guessing and, you know, keep yourself insulin sensitive as well.
Yeah, I think it's, you're right. Like, if you zoom out far enough, then whilst it's important, like Hyrox is a 70, 80 minute workout, isn't it? And whilst it's important, the result, I think, getting that structure around it and having the good habits that you've sort of formed for like 3 months or whatever you do in leading up to it, probably they definitely have a bigger effect on you and your sort of your life and everything else, don't they? So yeah, I think that focusing too much on the day or the hour can be a bit of a mistake unless you're someone who's making a career out of it. I think a bit more of a holistic view would probably benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. And, I found that sometimes I feel like I preferred the training for a Hyrox rather than the actual Hyrox event. Because it's such a huge stimuli, and it's enjoyable because it's like highly dopaminergic and kind of such an attack on the senses. But do you get like the post Hyrox come down thing?
I've definitely had it before. I think it's probably dulled a little bit because I've done 10 or 11 now, so it's like anything, isn't it? You get used to it. But I have definitely in the past, that week afterwards, just felt lost and like, what am I going to do now, sort of thing. But yeah, just taking a bit. I think what I always do now after I've done one is to just like write down some notes. As soon as I can get to like a notepad or whatever afterwards, I'll sit down and just write a couple of pages out of like what went well, what felt right, what felt wrong, what did I do good in the build up, what didn't go to plan, and then how am I going to sort of change this for the next one that I do. And that's been really, really useful, because this last one that I've done in Olympia last weekend, it was the best time that I've done as an individual in the open category, but I didn't feel like I'd performed anything like as well as I could have. Whereas in the past, I've come off thinking I've put in a really good effort there, and I guess it's just that sort of that progress, isn't it? So whilst I've come off not feeling great, like I think I'll learn more from this one, the future ones, than I have off others that have perhaps gone to like more to plan. And it's just understanding where you are in that process, really. If you're someone that's going to do a few, take the first few that you do as like a lesson, like try different things, reflect on it, and then just reiterate and go again. Is sort of where I've seen people, like it's worked for me, and I've seen other people that have done that as well. Like they've got into the analytical side, like you said before, rather than just thinking, I've done a 120 there, can I do a 115 next? It's going a layer below that and saying, how do I shave 15 seconds off per run? Or I'm terrible at skiing compared to everyone else who's getting a similar time to me. Like, what do I need to do to get better at that? And yeah, the reflection's a big part of it, I think, if you're somebody that's doing it to improve.
There's a theme here with like balance, and I suppose a good coach brings out the other side of you that's not as active. So whether that's, if you are being mega detailed, he's there to kind of give you the big picture view.
Yeah.
And it, just occurred to me as you were saying that then, actually, because I love the data. I love like really getting into the weeds, and shout out to Matty Green. I don't know if you know Matty.
Yeah, I did a few sessions there a few years back.
Yeah. So, and and me saying before about relaxing and stuff, that's probably come from him. You know, because he'd be like, just relax, and I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it take after a while, like, oh yeah, he's right. That's a good coach, right?
Yeah, see, like he's even like, I'll give him a ring the day before a race now to go through, like my race plan, and I always ring him expecting him to like give me a detailed race plan. And it's always like, he's like, you know what you're doing, just go out and make sure you enjoy it. But it's like, I'm like, yeah, but what power should I aim to hold? And he's like, just do what feels right. So, when I was saying before about, cycling up a hill, like focusing on like not doing too much power, it's like at the end of the day, it's just a lot of it is just going off feel. Same with the heart rate stuff. Like you'll know if you're pushing too hard, and it's just kind of just vibe it.
Yeah, and I suppose that's like the benefit of experience, because you can't just pick that up by having a fancy watch.
Yeah.
Like, you have to learn how your body feels, know to be aware of when you're pushing it too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What about carbs and food? So, how many carbs you having during a race? How much per hour?
I can get it on my notes, actually. So, this probably sounds bad, but like, I've been through this with Joel before, and he's that laid back. We've never really come up with a plan.
Yeah.
It's always just been, if you're hungry, eat. Or if you're hungry, it's too late. You probably should have already eaten. Did I save it in here? No, I didn't. Yeah, I was doing night shifts before Mallorca. I probably shouldn't say this. My manager watches it, but I think one of the nights I had on my lunch break, I calculated my body weight, how many carbs I should be having per hour, like for Mallorca for the half distance. And I know like a few years back it was always 80-90 grams of carbs per hour was the optimum, but people are smashing nearly double that now, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I just picked a random number and thought, right, 120, I'll go for that. So using the energy drink that I use, I calculate, well, there's this many grams of carbs per 100 gram, and I can dilute that in this much water. So with me 3 750ml bottles, I can get this many grams of carbs in total for the bike leg. And then I'm like, right, that only gets me to, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but let's say it gets me, I'm still at a 60 gram deficit if I cycle for 2 hours 15 minutes on the bike. Pardon me. So then it's like, I need to make up that 60 grams elsewhere. So at that point, I'm then taking solid food, energy bars. I personally don't like taking gels when I'm on the bike, because it's easier to digest solids when you're on the bike. Whereas running, you can't really do that. So I quite almost like to. Always feels like I'm lining my stomach with the solid food on the bike, so that when I do go onto the gels on the run, it's not as bad. So yeah, I'll calculate. It was about 120 I went for Mallorca, and then currently I don't really weigh myself, but I'm probably around 85, probably close to 90. But I've like, my weight's always been consistent. At swimming at Loughborough, we used to get weighed twice a week, which I don't know if you saw it, but there was a bit of a bit of a hoo-ha in the press about it. It was all over BBC News, about how it's promoting. It was like I obviously I didn't know about it at the time, but it was promoting like eating disorders within the team. It was quite a big thing across the whole of British swimming.
Yeah.
Which to me it's kind of going away from what we're talking about. But it's absolutely baffling to me, because in the water, like, weight doesn't really have much of an effect.
No.
You're pretty much weightless anyway. If anything, having a layer of fat's better, because then you're more buoyant, because fat's less dense than muscle, so you sit higher in the water, so you got less of your body in the water, so then it's easier to pull yourself through the air than it is the water. So but yeah, so anyway, we used to get weighed every twice a week, every week. I was always around 84, 85 kilos. Going into Kona, I was probably the fittest I'd ever been. I was probably the leanest I'd ever been. I was about 81 kilos there. But this last year I've been sat at like 88, probably 89. I don't watch what I eat. I've probably got quite a bad diet. I do like donuts. Lauren's just sent me pictures of some donuts in London that she's got. So I've asked her to bring some back. But like you know, I understand some people do exercise as a means to allow them to to eat whatever they want. You know, I live with people at uni who, you know, they'd always like be really strict on what they ate because like they put on weight quite easily, whereas I never really had that issue. So I've never, I think because I've always been this active, I've never had to like worry about it. So for me, I don't do what I do so that I can eat what I want. I just, you know, I do it because I enjoy it, and I enjoy eating whatever I want.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
Yeah, I guess coming back to the original question, grams of carbs per hour. Yeah, aim for 120. Calculated it wrong. Mallorca, I was on about 135, which is probably why I did all right. So then from there for Roth, I was like, right, we can push it a bit further. So I think Roth, I was aiming for 130 to 140 grams, so around that kind of region. And then yeah, same again for Portugal. And this year, I guess looking at it, my performances have been more consistent, and they've probably been better this year.
Yeah.
And you like other things have happened, but I think nutrition's definitely been one of the things that I've focused on more.
So you're probably like about, like, if you take your kilos and times that by 1.4, that's kind of roughly your grammage per hour.
Yeah.
Something like that. Are you? I seen you've got Kendall mint cake mentioned in your Instagram. Are they like sponsor you or anything?
Shameless plug. Yes. Well, yes and no. So Jack, the lad who owns it, he's from Carlisle. He was
right.
He was City of Carlisle. He was the year above us. So at counties and that, we always used to race each other in finals, and he was a good good sprinter, breaststroke and freestyle. He's a tall. I'm 6'2" and he's like 6'4", 6'5". But yeah, so I swam with him for years. I worked out in Mallorca for a couple of summers, swim coaching out there, and we ended up living together while he was doing the same, and then he went to Loughborough as well. So I've known him for years, and he started Kendall Mint a couple of years back, and yeah, just kind of said, "Oh, do you fancy doing something?" So yeah, he helps us out each month, just not financially or anything, just gives us enough product to get me through like my training and that, and then just so that I can race. But yeah, I think it's it is quite a personal thing, like what nutrition you use. Some people will probably buy the really fancy stuff because the people that they aspire to and look up to probably use it, which is fine. Whereas for me, I quite like the fact that I'm able to help out a relatively small business, someone that I like grew up with. I'm able to give him a bit of publicity and help him out. I might be able to approach some of the other companies, and I might be able to get a free thing here and there, but at the end of the day, like they don't care. They don't care about me. Like they've got whoever else they've got, but for me, I like to be able to help out Jack and Jack and the Kendall Mint guys, and
cool.
I really appreciate obviously them helping me out as well.
Hey guys, it's me. Thank you so much for watching that episode, and congratulations for making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. few things before you get going. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you enjoyed this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to share it with a friend or family member. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to both my guests and myself. And if you made it this far, why don't you drop me a DM?